Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Grand Traverse. Today, in the joyous spirit of celebration that has seized the nation this week, we have seen throngs of exultant people shouting in unison, "We will not go back." I do not know the content of Reverend Marshall's sermon today entitled, "With Reason for Hope," but I do know that many of us are now finding reason for hope. Welcome to all to our service with Reverend Beth Marshall, our guest minister today. Reverend Beth is well known to this congregation. Today she will be delivering a message and a theme of Christmas in July. You will note our Christmas tree decorated with lights, a star, maybe one bulb, but mostly with birds. And I don't think we have any children here, but if adults would like to guess how many birds are on there, you're welcome to do so. And later, during social hour, as I think most of you know, we're going to enjoy some Christmas cookies as well to celebrate Christmas. I am Susan Smith, the coordinator of this service and a member of the Sunday Services Committee. We are glad to have you with us, whether in person or streaming from home. On the back of our order of service, you will note our land acknowledgement, a request to silence electronic devices, and a notice about the book at the front of the sanctuary in which you can record your joys and concerns and or light a candle of commemoration as you prefer. Richard Miller, a member of the Congregational Care Team, will read what you choose to share a little later in this service. I want to make note that there is a couple of small changes in the order of service. After our opening hymn, even though I don't see any children here yet, we are still going to have a time for all ages story. Reverend Beth has picked out a very special book to share with us all. And my feeling is that they really are stories for all ages. We all seem to enjoy those stories. In addition, after Richard shares our joys and concerns later in this service, we will go directly to the song of response at that point. Here at UUCGT, we are a pluralistic congregation, which means not only that we are different from one another in many ways, but that we embrace those differences and grow bigger and better as individuals because of them. Accordingly, we enthusiastically embrace your differences and welcome you just as you are to our beloved community. I apologize to the people on my left. Hello over there. This Christmas tree is in my line of vision, and I suppose there's something I could do about it, but I don't know what. So, like off the table, maybe, or. Oh, there's that. That would help. I usually do that anyway. Oh, look at you folks. You're so wonderful. Those who count birds, don't forget the two on that little stool. Oh, thank you so much. That feels so much better. Okay. And I was so delighted in that last paragraph to be able to use the word pluralistic, which was the focus of a Sunday service a few weeks ago. If you are new to the congregation or haven't been here for a while and are willing and able, you may stand to introduce yourself. Someone will bring a microphone which will enable even those at home to hear your introduction. However, please feel free to remain seated and silent if you prefer. And that goes for those who have not been here for a while. Is there anyone who would like to introduce themselves today? Okay. So, and you will know, you all are used to this now, but our order of service is in a skeleton form these days and doesn't contain our usual cover picture, and also doesn't have the specificity of the composer along with the music. So just a few points about that. At this time, I request that we turn our attention to our centering music, the beautiful Christmas piece, Pastorale by A. Corelli, and performed by our accompanist today, Joe Page. Reverend Beth will light our chalice for us as I read these words from Reverend Sarah C. Richard, entitled Opening for Christmas Eve. O come, all ye faithful and doubtful, joyful and blue, Mary and Joseph, Rudolph and Frosty, and me and you, to hear Christmas stories, some old, some new, reminding us that love, hope, and mystery are true. And now, as Reverend Beth sounds the singing bowl, let us close our eyes and glide into the peace and harmony in our deepest centers as we listen to its reverberations. Anne Marie Jones, our music director, will lead us in our opening hymn, number 253 in the gray hymnal. Please rise as you are willing and able as we sing, O Come, All Ye Faithful.
So this book is one I discovered too many decades ago, but I love the perspective. It is titled A Dozen Silk Diapers. A long time ago, a mother spider lived with her 40 children in a stable outside of Bethlehem. The mother spider was gentle and loving, and her children kept her very busy, but she was always willing to help others if they needed it. When the lamb broke its leg, the mother spider wove a web of silk threads around the lamb's leg to make a cast. And when the roof leaked over the donkey's stall, she plugged the hole with mud and grass and joined it together with silk threads. One evening, a brilliant star lit up the sky and shone directly over the stable. "What does it mean?" the little spiders all asked. "I don't know," the mother said, "but it must signify something wonderful." Well, that same evening, a young woman named Mary came to the stable. She and her husband Joseph sought shelter because there was no other place for them. And soon, Mary gave birth to a baby boy named Jesus. The spiders and the other animals watched quietly as the young mother wrapped the child in soft blankets and laid him in a manger filled with straw. The little spiders all wanted to visit the new baby because they had visited all the other babies that were born in the stable. But the mother told them no, because most people don't like spiders, and she feared something might happen to them. So her children all crawled back to the nest underneath the cattle trough. Except, of course, for one little spider. He carefully crawled out past his sleeping brothers and sisters and quickly climbed up to the rafters. He stopped directly over the manger where the sleeping baby lay. But he couldn't see clearly, so he moved closer to the edge, and he stretched out his 8 skinny legs as far as he could. And with one more stretch of his legs, he fell right into the manger next to the sleeping baby. When he opened his eyes and shook the dizziness out of his head, he saw Mary gazing down at him and smiling. She laughed and scooped him up gently and told him to scurry home. The little spider hurried back to bed when he saw 3 men in flowing robes enter the stable. They came to visit Mary and bring gifts for the baby. The little spider wondered if they could give a gift too. His mother replied, "I am grateful for all the woman's kindnesses, but what shall we give, for we have nothing?" And then she had an idea. She awakened all of her children and told them her plan. Far into the night, while her children spun silk, she wove all of the threads together. And by dawn she was finished, and she asked the lamb to help move them over to where the baby slept. When Mary awoke, she was delighted to find their gift. They were the most beautiful diapers she had ever seen. But where did they come from? By chance, she looked up into the rafters and saw a family of spiders down watching her. And then she remembered the little one. "Thank you," she said. "Please come closer and see him." The spiders all gathered along the edge of the manger to gaze at the sleeping child. The adventurous little one, however, climbed up the wall and sat on the edge of a small window for his glimpse of the baby. A long shaft of light touched the corner of the stall where all the gifts were placed. The little spider saw gold and jewels and sweet-scented spices. But now, in the very center, were the shimmering silk diapers. The end.
The following reading is by Storm Stafford, entitled, "I'm Not Scrooge, I'm Just Broke." It's said that you can never have too many friends, but Christmas was just a week ago, and I had 5 people left to shop for on my Christmas list and only $3 to my name. How do you tell your mother, brother, and 3 friends that you can only spend 60 cents on each of them? "Let's set a price limit on our gifts this year," I suggested to my best friend, Joni. "That's a good idea," Joni agreed. "How about nothing over $5? "How about nothing over 60 cents? I felt like the biggest cheapskate in the world. "I guess this is where I'm supposed to say it's not the gift, but the thought that counts," Joni smiled. "But don't blame me if all you get is a stick of gum." It's almost impossible to buy anything for under 60 cents, so it's going to have to be very small gifts with very big thoughts. I'd never spent so much time or effort trying to come up with the right gift for the right person. Finally, Christmas Day arrived, and I was worried how people would feel about my cheap gifts. I gave my mother a scented candle with a note that said, "You are the brightest light in my life." She almost cried when she read the note. I gave my brother a wooden ruler. On the back of it, I'd painted, "No brother in the world could measure up to you." He gave me a bag of sugar and had written on it, "You're sweet." He'd never said anything like that to me before. For Joni, I painted an old pair of shoes silver and stuck dried flowers in them with a note that said, "No one could ever fill your shoes." She gave me a feather and a Band-Aid. She said I tickled her funny bone and made her laugh until her sides ached. To my other two friends, I gave one a paper fan and wrote on it, "I'm your biggest fan." To the other, I gave a calculator that cost $1, and I painted a message on it, "You can always count on me." They gave me a rusty horseshoe for luck and a bundle of sticks tied with a red ribbon because friends stick together. I don't remember all the other gifts that I got from people last Christmas, but I remember every one of my cheap gifts. My brother thinks I'm sweet. My mother knows she's the most important person in my life. Joni thinks I'm funny and I make her laugh, which is important because her dad moved away last year and she misses him and is sad sometimes. I was worried I wouldn't have enough money for Christmas gifts, but I gave gifts to 5 people and still had 20 cents left over. We all still talk about our cheap gifts and how much fun it was to come up with a gift that cost pennies but told someone how we really felt about them. On my bookshelf, I still have a bag of sugar, a horseshoe, and a bundle of sticks, and they are priceless. Now is the time of our offering when you so generously give to support the congregation and community needs in the Traverse City area. Please note the 2 sides of the baskets being passed. They are labeled Congregation and Community Needs. Place your donations as you wish. If you are watching at home, you may give as described in the slide. Mail a check, visit the UUCGT website, download the Vanco Mobile Faith Engagement app, or pre-arrange with your bank for a monthly transfer into the UUCGT account. However you give, you may always designate your gift as you choose for the congregation or for community needs. In the spirit of giving, let us listen to our meditation music, "We Three Kings of Orient Are," played by Joe Page. As you all know, it describes the Magi's travels bringing gifts for the baby Jesus. Please listen to this familiar hymn during the collection of our gifts, though it is unlikely that any will be gold, frankincense, or myrrh. This is a reading called, excuse me, Fair Game by James D. He writes, "The real intent of our holiday trips to Oregon to visit my wife's family is for her to visit with her sisters and for them to go shopping. So with that in mind, a few years ago, I initiated Uncles and Nephews Day. The guys go out in force. It might be bowling or skiing on Mount Hood, but whatever the activity was, it was unbridled freedom from the parents, with rules only uncles and nephews share. Secrets and promises kept, love secured. This trip, I suggested a trip to the Coast Range west of Portland to an elk refuge called Jewel Meadows,
where hundreds of magnificent elk congregate. I assured my nephews that it was awesome. Warm steam shoots from their black nostrils. We'll hear the big bulls bugle their mating calls and proudly see them stand at attention in front of their harems. The nephews say that they're game. So on a damp, cold December morning, nephews and uncles bundle in their parkas and pile into an old sedan and head west in anticipation. The guys are on the loose again. Now remember, Uncle has not been to Jewel Meadows in a number of years, but he feels certain he knows the way. Wrong. They take the well-remembered turn off at the north, and I'm sure this is where we turn crossroad. They wander onto snowy mountain roads that become progressively more unfamiliar. The three nephews, ages 12 to 15, hurl taunts that are immediately challenged, all of which escalate into witticism and good-natured personal insults. It's a guy thing. It's how they show their love. Because an uncle is like a god, but pleasantly flawed and bemused by his earthly existence. An uncle will let you in on a secret. Nobody really knows what life is about. But don't worry about it. Be a good person, and it will all work out. So after 2 hours of wandering around the back roads with required detours and pit stops and snowball fights, they finally stumble upon the road to Jewel Meadows. But today, the long-sought meadow, historically populated with 400 to 500 regal animals, set against a verdant green backdrop, is absolutely empty. There is not an elk in sight. So, Uncle, where's the elk? We don't see any elk. Nephews are on Uncle's case. Uncle's heart sinks. His male ego falters. His childhood leadership merit badge is at stake. I don't know, Uncle stammers. They're always here, hundreds of them. Maybe they're over by the tree line grazing. They do that sometimes. They've got to be here somewhere. So the four guys zip into their parkas and creep to the fence with their binoculars. And they begin to hallucinate. First individually, then en masse. I see one over there. See, it's right by that big, funny-looking bush. It's moving. But no amount of conviction shows a single elk. It's cold. There's snow on the ground. They've crossed the continent to the promised land, and there is no gold, no milk, no honey, nothing. Uncle rallies. Oh, I get it. Eyes hopeful. The three defeated nephews swivel their heads as one in his direction. Uncle nods knowingly. It's Christmas time, that's why. Oh, what's that got to do with it? Remember? And on the spot, the uncle begins a serenade. His voice floats over the entire meadow, a new twist on an old carol.
No elk, no elk, no elk, no elk.
The nephews cannot believe what they're hearing. You brought us all the way out here to do that. They've been had, shagged, deceived, misled, and tricked. Oh man, I can't believe it, dude! They turn from the fence and toward Uncle. He's about to be a dead man. He knows it, and he can't wait. The nephews attack in full force, wrestle him to the ground, pound on him, sit on him, and pelt him with snow. And he resists not at all, because this is the best. He's earned it. He loves it. He loves them. and they love him. Let's sing together. First Noel, number 237 in the hymnal. Unless I blew it. Oh, I did blow it.
Anne Marie, let's let Richard do our sharing joys and concerns. My fault. I got out of order a little bit. Following Richard sharing the joys and concerns, we'll do Spirit of Life, and then we'll be back on schedule with the first Noel.
Flexibility.
Flexibility, that's one of our many virtues. We've reached the time together when we share concerns and joys occupying our personal minds this morning. Some among us have concerns they wish to privately recognize by simply lighting a candle. Here are written thoughts from friends present among us, which they wish to share today. Actually, unlike last week where there weren't any, there is one written concern, and it is an important one. Thinking of Millie Putz, who will have surgery tomorrow. My joy is just, again, seeing another gorgeous summer day. We have had so many, and each one seems fresh and new. Love it. Let us reach out compassionately to one another in our hearts as we take a moment to silently reflect upon where individually each one of us finds ourselves as we focus inwardly on our lives at present. In the words Alex expresses so regularly, none of us was ever meant to travel life's journey alone. Let us pause for a moment. Thank you.
Singing our song of response, Spirit of Life, number 123, found in your gray hymnal.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots fold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
And now I think we're going to sing the first Noel. So is this hymn number 237? Yes, 237. Would you please rise in body or in spirit and join me? Gotta find my page. Let's start over. False start, everybody. The
The first Noel, the angel did say, was to certain poor shepherds in fields where they lay, in fields where they lay, keeping their sheep on a cold winter's night that was so deep. Noel, 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 born is the King of Israel. They looked up and saw a star shining in the east, beyond them far, and to the earth it gave great light, and so it continued both day and night. Noel, 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 born is the King of Israel. And by the light of that same star, 3 magi came from country far to seek a king. Was their intent, and to follow the star wherever it went. Noel, 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 born is the King of Israel.
Reverend Gordon McKeeman, longtime minister at the Unitarian Universalist Church in Akron, Ohio, once wrote this: Christmas is not so much a matter of explanation or interpretation as it is a mood and a feeling. It is a time in the cycle of the year to set apart with hope and fellowship and generosity. Christmas is a season of the heart. I can work with that. For as desperately as I try to keep separate back to school, then Halloween, then Thanksgiving, and then and only then Christmas, the litany of extraordinary events this last year has me wondering if there might be real value in embracing with intention the very best parts of Christmas this morning: hope, fellowship, generosity. Reimagining Christmas as a season of the heart speaks to my core. I'm not drawn to the overly commercialized or competitive elements, or the parts that slide too easily into overindulgence and overspending. I'm drawn to those aspects that bring out the best in us. When I think of Christmas, I think of generosity and family, joy, hope for the future, love expressed, and the belief that one day genuine peace on earth may be more than a dream. I think of friends finding creative ways to express their affection for one another. A dollar store calculator with the words painted on the back, "You can always count on me." A bundle of twigs bound together with a note saying, "Friends stick together." A candle with the text, "You are the light of my life." I think of all the charitable organizations many of us support during the holidays and the rest of the year. mitten trees, holiday food baskets, PJ drives, and even diaper drives. Each and every one is an act of generosity and kindness. I think of the many ways that families are celebrated: grandparents and grandchildren, uncles and nephews, cousins and siblings. So many stories come to mind, some retold annually through cinematic form, some from our own experience, and often the story of one child's birth. I think of how common is the phrase peace on earth, and how many of us are paralyzed as to how exactly to make that a reality. To my thinking, those are all themes that are well worth embracing past the month of December. In one form or another, each is an expression of hope. Author Yuval Levin proposes that hope is a virtue worth our consideration. And he writes this: optimism and pessimism are both dangerous vices because they are both invitations to passivity. But hope is a virtue. It sits between those two vices. Hope tells us that things could go well and invites us to take action that might make that happen and might make us worthy of it happening. It doesn't deny the obvious potential for calamity that always casts a shadow in the future, but holds out the possibility of light and grace. And frankly, these days, I am looking for all the light and grace I can find. And perhaps the spirit of Christmas is one of the best examples of light and grace we can celebrate. With deep respect for my Christian colleagues and friends and family who find deep meaning in an annual retelling of the virgin birth, I confess to hearing something different. I hear the story of a young couple struggling under extraordinary circumstances. But I also hear the sheer wonder of holding a newborn baby in our arms, of seeing a better future in their eyes. What I hear is my own heart beating with renewed confidence and a hope for the future, a renewed hope emerging from a most unexpected place. The realist in me, though, is mindful of what happens when we put too much expectation on a single individual. When we ask one person to untangle the mess that we're in, or expect that person to single-handedly forge a new path that previous generations have been unable to do. In that case, we are setting up an almost impossible scenario. Some of the most pressing issues today require more than the efforts of even the most stellar individual. For while the temptation might be to pin all of our hopes and dreams on their shoulders, believing that their wisdom and their insight will transform our communities, our world, it is simply too much to ask, too much to expect. Each one of us can probably remember and give name to an individual whose rise in popularity rightfully gave us great hope again for the future, whose vision inspired, whose ideas energized those words, whose actions encouraged us to believe again. A writer, a philosopher, a faith leader, an artist, a politician, a Martin, a Bobby, a John, a Hillary, a Barack, a Kamala. And without doubt, their words and ideas inspire and invigorate all of us. And yet, even the best of their words and visions, even the most innovative of their actions and proposals and good works, won't succeed on their own. No one person, not even the best of the best, can turn a difficult situation around by herself, by himself. No one person, not even the best of the best, can transform a community on her own. No one person, not even the best of the best, has the capacity to change what has taken decades or even centuries to take hold. Without a supportive and cooperative community working with them in collaboration, even the best risk falling short. And we know this from experience. This is true of new CEOs of small companies and school superintendents and city managers and occupants of the most powerful offices in our country. Whatever solutions we find, whatever paths to peace and prosperity we forge moving forward, will be the result of collective efforts, not the work of a single individual. No one is that good, not even Jesus himself. Now, while I do happen to believe that an individual speech or sermon can move the hearts and minds of people, what happens next is truly in the hands of those people. Such speeches and sermons are like gifts given and received. The most memorable, powerful sermons and speeches are only as potent as the willingness of those who hear them, how willing they are to engage. The clearest visions of a leader can only take us so far, because we are each called to do our part as well. Some of us can do the biggest of tasks, others the smallest ones, but we are each called to do our part. It's a matter of living into those familiar words by Edward Everett Hale, ones many of us know by heart. I am only one, but I am one. And I cannot do everything, but I can do something. And because I cannot do everything, I will not refuse to do the something that I can do. Far from being a cliche, his words remind us of our responsibility to push through whatever is holding us back. And as that tiny spider modeled for us in the time for all ages, even the smallest, the most insignificant, can do something meaningful, something wonderful, something beautiful. Every congregation that I've had the pleasure to work with has always had ways that they care for one another. And each has made a commitment during the holidays to care for those with less, much like this congregation does. Some choose to adopt a family to help with gifts for the children. Others collect, of course, warm coats and mittens and socks and underwear, pajamas. The congregation that I work with in Canton, Ohio, does quarterly diaper drives in collaboration with the local diaper bank, so that parents can send their children to daycare while they go to work or to school. Because each congregation is called to work with the resources they have. But the other ways we care for each other are often closer to home. I spend a lot of time listening to individuals about their personal concerns. And what I've learned is that often we get so focused on our own difficulties and challenges that we forget that it is in serving others that we are healed, that we are served. There's an old story from Japan that illustrates this, and it goes something along these lines. Many years ago, an old woman wanted to see for herself the difference between heaven and hell. And the monks in her temple offered to grant her request. First, we will show you hell, they said, and they put a blindfold over her eyes. And when the blindfold was removed, the old woman was standing at the entrance of a great hall, and there were tables piled high with the most amazing array of delicious food. But then the old woman noticed that all the people were seated just out of arm's reach of the tables. Their bodies were thin, their faces pale. They held chopsticks 3 feet long. And with the chopsticks, they could reach the food, but they couldn't get it into their mouths. As the old woman watched, a hungry, angry sound rose up, and she threw up her hand, saying, "Enough, show me heaven." Again, the monks blindfolded her, and when the blindfold was removed, for the second time, she was standing at the entrance of another great hall, very much like the first. And again, she saw tables piled high with the most extraordinary foods. And again, she saw people sitting out of arm's reach from the tables, and each was holding a pair of 3-foot chopsticks. But the second time, something was different. This time, she saw the people in heaven were plump with rosy cheeks, and as she watched and listened, the musical sound of laughter filled the air. And then she laughed herself, for she understood the difference of what was happening. She understood the difference between heaven and hell. The people in heaven were using those 3-foot chopsticks to feed each other. So often it is by serving others that we serve ourselves. And in doing so, we bring peace not only to ourselves, but to our homes, and peace to each other as well. And if there was ever a time in our history when an infusion of genuine peace was needed, I think it's this moment. On any given day, the divisions within our communities and sometimes even our families seem deeper, the chasms wider, the rhetoric more heated and mean. On some days, it's as though all nuance has gone the way of the dial-up, dial wall-mounted telephone. Many of us have asked how it is possible that relationships with beloved people who were once friends and colleagues are now fractured because of differences in perspective over a single issue. Others have asked how it is that family members struggle to stay in relationship or even share a holiday meal when opposite voting patterns are revealed. What might it take to get back to a time when individuals can thoughtfully share an idea or a thought without risk of retribution or shame or rejection? There are very serious issues facing us in the world today. There are obstacles to genuine peace, and it saddens me greatly that it is so difficult to have an open, thoughtful discussion about them. And my hope is that we can find a way back to a time when we don't immediately choose sides and then demonize the rest. During this past year, I have spent a good deal of time looking for people and organizations who are spending their energy and their resources connecting with people very, very different from themselves, people who believe differently, who think differently, who live differently. I was seeking out those who boldly embodied the belief that we do have more in common than divides us, and that people who think differently and live differently can actually live in community. It gave me hope last fall when I found multiple groups of good people out there making efforts on bridging that divide. In the aftermath of October 7th, I rediscovered Tikkun magazine. Many of you know it's a publication dedicated to uplifting Jewish, interfaith, and secular prophetic voices in hopes that it will contribute to universal liberation. Immediately, they published what they called a statement of solidarity with Israel and Palestine. It was bold and courageous, going where few others were willing or able to go. If you haven't already, I encourage you to take a look at the entire piece yourself, if only to explore an organization that is willing to look at the bigger picture, much in the same way that organizations like Braver Angels and More in Common do so well. In part, this is what they said. This is a statement written and signed by Palestinians, Jews, and others who are committed to holding complex truths and striving to overcome polarization. It is only by recognizing our shared fears and our shared tears that we will find our way through this nightmare, and it is the struggle that we undertake jointly. When we fall back into our separate and distinct identities, we risk becoming part of the problem, not the solution. We are all on high alert. Our fear is palpable, and it is easy for us to objectify the other. But we seek a third path. This moment calls us to slow down, to sit with the pain and complexity and grapple with our own discomfort. It is a moment for digging deep, seeing across differences, and remembering our deep yearning for peace and justice. Because it is only through compassion that we will find a different way. The more I dug into their efforts, the more impressed I became. And in the weeks that followed, I read about small, dedicated groups of Jews and Palestinians actively, intentionally learning firsthand about each other's lives, seeing each other as human beings, not as demons, not as the other. They gather and they tell stories every week about how they actually live their lives, how they go to school, how they worship, how they prepare meals, and how they raise their children. They learn about each other's struggles, their fears, and their dreams. Because the shared goal of both groups is to live alongside each other peacefully, sharing this tiny piece of planet Earth that is sacred to both of them. In the process of learning about each other and each other's lives, it is their own hearts and thinking, of course, that are changing. They are growing and expanding in unexpected ways. Reading about their willingness to engage each other honestly and calmly was a balm to this minister's very tired soul. It gave me hope in a time of overheated, divisive rhetoric. And I'll go into a little bit more specific detail next week. Their efforts toward creating peace in their corner of the world are some of the most authentic I've seen to date, and it makes me wonder. It gives me hope about what else might be possible. It makes me consider that even in the light of the events this week, that the possibility of peace on earth might not be as far-fetched an idea as it seems some days. Is it ironic to celebrate the efforts of a coalition of Palestinians and Jews during a Christmas in July service? Only if you want to limit Christmas to those who celebrate the birth of Christ. Through a wider lens, I genuinely believe that any concerted efforts toward peace, particularly successful ones, are worthy of celebration. Period. Their work gives me hope for what might be possible for the rest of us. I'll let you in on a little secret. Over the years, I have amassed a collection of background stories and details about Christmas traditions that we might otherwise take for granted. And this summer, I added to that background the story of Silent Night. Now, you may already know this, but this was new to me. And if my sources are to be trusted, in 1818, in December, very close to Christmas, in a small town outside of Salzburg, Joseph Moore, assistant priest at St. Nicholas Catholic Church, was making preparations for midnight mass when he discovered that the church organ was broken. It would not play. And it's unclear whether the cause was mice or flooding. But what we do know is that in that place where problem solving meets creativity, the young priest took a simple poem that he had written and asked his friend, Franz Gruber, if he might set it to music. Quickly. Hours later, on Christmas Eve, Gruber and Moore sang their new composition, Silent Night, in its original German for the first time, accompanied only by guitar because the organ would not work. Then, as now, the simple tune speaks of calm, of peace, and the sort of hope that too often eludes us the rest of the year. If Christmas is indeed a season of the heart, let us each find ways to nurture it through all the months of the year. May Christmas all year be a source of joy, of generosity, of stronger community, of hope, of peace on earth. So may it be. Amen. Amen.
Would you please join us in singing hymn number 251, Silent Night, Holy Night? Stand in body or in spirit, please.
Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright, round yon Virgin Mother and Child. Holy infant, so tender and mild, sleep in heavenly peace. Sleep in heavenly peace. Silent night, holy night, shepherds wake at the sight, glory stream from heaven afar. Heavenly hosts sing hallelujah. Sleep in heavenly peace. Sleep in heavenly peace. Silent night, holy night, child of God, love's pure light, radiant beams from thy holy face. With the dawn of redeeming grace, sleep in heavenly peace. Sleep in heavenly peace.
The Releasing the Flame words this morning are written by Brian Keeley, called Carry the Flame. The chalice is now extinguished, but its light lives on in the minds and hearts and souls of each one of you. Carry that flame with you as you leave this place and share it with those you know, with those you love, and most especially with those you have yet to meet. Thank you. I have some announcements for you folks today. One is about the Social Action Justice Committee. You know they've been working very hard, and many of you have been sharing in that work, and we all appreciate it. Please stop at the table if you're out of your current assignment and ready for another one. They have plenty of things that need to be done. I was shocked this week when I went to the post office and was buying 100 postcard stamps to be told it was $56. Sometime in the last 10 or 15 or 20 years when I wasn't paying attention, apparently the cost of sending a postcard went up. We will also be texting voting alerts in the future, and the Social Justice Action team will let us know when the training is ready for us and when the time is to begin. Please share widely the video link on the UUCGT website that features a soon-to-be 18-year-old woman and a 101-year-old man. The 4-minute video captures their enthusiasm and belief that everyone's voice should be heard during our elections through their vote. For social hours, there are tables and chairs set up for those who prefer sitting to standing. And please join us for coffee, tea, and Christmas cookies, most important of all. Lauren and Carl Kyneth have donated amaryllis bulbs, and you can contest to be a recipient of one of those bulbs by writing your name on a piece of paper and putting it in the Christmas bag that Lauren has prepared. And so there'll be a drawing. I'm not sure if it's going to be during social hours, so get your name in early in case if it happens during that time. And I need to finally draw your attention to the parking lot. By the way, thank you to Carl and Lauren for those amaryllis bulbs and that donation. The parking lot, you noticed something different was all about this morning. And so half the parking lot and driveway were resealed. The other half will receive its facelift on Monday and can't be driven on for 48 hours. That'll be Monday and Tuesday. The only thing that means is that if you're coming over to the church, drive only on the north half of the parking lot that has already been done. That's perfect because that's the part that's nearest our front door. And so you can easily, you'll be close to the church and can enter without difficulty. The south half will be marked off by cones prohibiting driving in that area. Are there any other announcements today? If not, all are invited to stand and join hands or outstretch hands, palm out, if you don't want to be touched. And benediction will be offered by Reverend Beth.
These brief words are from Rachel Naomi Raymond. Hidden in all stories is the one story. The more we listen, the clearer the story becomes. Our true identity, who we are, why we are here, what sustains us is in this story. Go in peace. Amen. Blessed be.